Over the fence here there are brick foundations of Matthew Murray's early buildings. The names are Round Foundry, Green Sand Foundry, technical terms for the technology he was inventing. And as we sweep across to this side of the village here, where buildings have been restored very thoroughly, but new components have been added for staircases, or in this case new accommodation, around the surviving steel structures and brick structures.
At the moment, we're only just realising maybe a quarter, maybe a fifth of that development potential. So in terms of the amount of business and residential units, we've got about 600 residential units completed by the end of the year. There's about 80,000 square metres of office space.
The developers lead the development process and the investment process, aided by bodies and agencies such as Yorkshire Forward, where we have, for example, received fairly substantial grants into creating these buildings. Without that public support, it would be extremely difficult to get those buildings and these developments off the ground. But one must remember that is only a very small percentage in overall terms of the amount that needs to be invested in any particular scheme. So the developer probably has to put in at least 80% of the total of the costs of the redevelopment. So the private investment going into Holbeck Urban Village at the moment is extremely substantial and will continue to be so.
What we're looking to create is local buy-in to what's happening, really. There's a sort of a social and personal investment from the communities around it into those regeneration areas, and they're always going to succeed more so if they're not seen to be some isolating ghetto of yuppies here.
If the new people come into the area in Holbeck Village, can be helped to realise what the history of that area is and the links between their area and our area, it would help, because people come into an area and they've got new buildings and they don't always see the fact that where that new building is planted. They don't see the history of it all.
We're in a building which is full of old metal beams, it's full of old steel, it's even full of old wooden beams which were part of old factories that were on this site originally. The name of the building, the Round Foundry, is taken from a building that actually burnt down at the beginning of the 19th century.
When we have our community meetings here, they would bring people from the Round Foundry and say to them, we've got this Round Foundry, come and have a look at it. It's got Yorkshire stone flooring, it's got, you know, we've just done some brass things on the wall to show the history of your community. And the people are sat thinking, what they're talking about? They're taking all our Yorkshire stone up and putting tarmac on, and we actually had to say to them, please stop sending people over because you're really annoying us, because what you're saying is, over here we can have all first-rate stuff, but over here you get nothing.
In reality, it's very, very difficult to find benefits of regeneration city centre to adjoining communities. We have not developed techniques for it yet. We keep failing in doing this. And I think the only way to redress it is to literally involve the people in the existing communities directly from a start in all the decision making.
If they're just going to carry on and just go their own way, the developers, and take no notice of us, then I don't think it's important whatsoever. I think it's only important if they embrace all of us.
I can honestly recall there being much in terms of either using the media in any way or community groups in any way, try and invite people to go and have a look at what's going on at the urban village, or inviting people to any kind of meetings or anything.
We have had some involvement. We've been invited to some of the meetings and we've participated in those. So some of our views have been canvassed in that. I think that could be better. I think because we're very interested in what goes on, but we pretty much have to go and find out the information.
None of the local people are on Holbeck Urban Village Board. No local representatives are on Holbeck Urban Village Board.
I don't know anybody that's been consulted with. I don't know any of the mosque leaders that have been consulted with. I don't know any. I don't know me. I certainly haven't had that conversation with anybody, and I'm probably the busiest body in Beeston.
What we're trying to do is, through more engagement with Beeston Hill and Holbeck and through presenting it to their board, is get their feedback into our plan.
I think consulting with communities is actually simpler than we think. The only problem is that it requires huge resources.
The project is partly delivered and is still in the progress of delivery. I don't think that it's had a massive impact to date, but it will have a massive impact once the vision is delivered and the regeneration is completed.
You have to be able to create that quantum of development in order to be able to have a benefit to the local community, because it's about creating the jobs, it's about creating facilities for them. And until the jobs are created in here, we're not going to be able to have a huge benefit to people.
When you walk down there and you look at some of the shops and you look at some of the buildings, and I think, wow, God, what were here before? It was nothing.